TalkSTL.com real spoilers, powered by ReviewSTL.com.
Warning, the following film discussion will ruin the ending of any movie you haven't seen. Example, Bruce Willis is dead at the end of The Sixth Sense. See how I ruined it for you? Just like that. Here are a few more.
Rosebud. Silent breed is people!
I am your father.
Get it?
TalkSTL.com real spoilers. You've been warned.
Broadcasting from a radioactive bunker deep within Bracket Compound, this is Real Spoilers, brought to you by Red Hot Riplets, the official potato chips of North County, because I just had a bag of them. They should send us some. But I am Tom O'Keefe, and we are down two of our regulars again this week, becoming precariously close to not being regulars.
No longer regulars.
I'm kidding. So we'll go around the room, and since I went to Kevin last time, we'll start with Joe.
I'm Joe.
Yes, I tipped him off on that part.
Spoiler alert. I am Steve.
And I'm Kevin.
And this week it is Miller time, or Millar time, I guess if you'd like to say it. Mark, is it Millar or
no,
Miller?
It's Miller.
Is it Miller?
Yeah, it's
he's
Miller.
trying to trick us. But
It's that A.
it's the damn British. Is he British or Canadian?
Yeah, he's British.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I think it is Millar. It's not. It's not? No. It's Miller.
He just told you.
Wow. Okay. Well,
That was harsh.
fair enough.
We're going to be down to 3 if you keep it up like that, Joe.
I guess this is Kevin's show. Sorry.
So,
No, Kevin, you're right. It's Millar. I'm sorry.
and he also pronounces Mike as Schneebelhoffen. It's just spelled like Mike. So,
Mark.
Oh, well, see? You're just correcting everybody. I always want to call him Mike. Anyway, we'll take all this out in post. We'll be discussing Kick-Ass 2 is what we'll be spoiling this week. But before we get too far into that, we will start with our box office report. Kevin has his abacus almost at the ready.
Yeah, I forgot to bring my abacus today. I'm gonna have to do this by memory.
I'm Asian. I got this.
He has his TI 99 4A at the ready.
We're too busy looking at the movies coming out for 2015. So this is really, really surprising for me this week. You remember how good the analysts were last week?
They nailed it last week. They were very proud.
I don't actually have my contacts at the analyst headquarters today. I don't have their word on it. But from my own analyst, or we should say junior analyst position, I would have said Kick-Ass is #1 this weekend, just because it's a sequel to a movie that took off. It found a life on DVD and Blu-ray, and there should be at this time, a huge following behind it, right? So let me go over the weekend box office here. #1 at the box office was The Butler. Very interesting. I mean, not to say I didn't see it. I'm not saying that it's a bad movie or anything like that, but when you think of Friday night, Friday, Saturday, weekend movie, and Kick-Ass is coming out, I'm thinking that's what the kids and, the majority of people are going to see. But The Butler is #1 with $25 million.
Do you think the people are finally have hit that point with action fatigue? That they just can't do it anymore?
I wouldn't say that. I'm not surprised that The Butler opened at $25 million. What I'm more surprised at is that Kick-Ass couldn't do more than.
That's what I mean. I'm not saying The Butler's bad
right.
but why didn't Kick-Ass beat it? I just don't.
Yeah, there have been so few adult movies, not like in the bomb way, but like just actual movies for grown-ups. There
are plenty of those movies.
And I used to say grown-up movies instead of adult movies, but then Adam Sandler ruined that. Now when I say grown-up movies, I think I just mean really shitty movies with a lot of dick jokes. But there's been so few movies for people, let's say, over the age of 35, and so I get that that's an underserved marketplace. So I'm not surprised that it did $25 million, but what did Kick-Ass 2 end up doing?
Well,
like 15?
We'll get to that, but this is another big surprise. We're the Millers, #2.
Yeah.
That's a movie that is in its second week of release at the box office. It came out on Wednesday, so it's been out like 2.5 weeks. Did $17 million. I mean, right under, just a little bit under The Butler. #3 was Elysium. So Elysium actually holding its own. It's $13 million, but I would have predicted a bigger drop than that. And #4, Kick-Ass 2 opening at $13.5 million.
And I believe Kick-Ass 1 opened at 19.
Yeah.
So it actually did worse than Kick-Ass 1's opening, and it's opening in the same time frame. Yeah. So it's not even like when we talked about Red 2 opening at a very different time frame and kind of getting lost in the shuffle. This is the same time frame. It's a sequel. It's a sequel
to something that took off.
Yeah, that really developed a cult following on video. You would think that they would be more, like what I was thinking was when Austin Powers 2 came out. And Austin Powers was a hit, but it really didn't gain traction until home video. And so when Austin Powers 2 came out, that thing was a juggernaut because everybody had missed it. The first one, most people had missed it in the theaters, and so they ran to see it. And I thought that's what would happen here, and it did not.
You've also got a built-in comic audience that I'm surprised. I mean, you know, Watchmen did more than that, I think.
So
yeah,
easily. So the fact that even the comic community was kind of like, nah.
The only thing I can take from this is
if Watchmen hadn't done more than that, Zack Snyder would not be directing.
That's correct. Yes, very, very true, very true.
So what I take from it, I mean, just trying to figure this out in my head here, I think that we have had a jam-packed action blockbuster summer. School just started back up last week.
That's true.
I just think that the timing was wrong for it. I think Kick-Ass could have done well at the beginning or midsummer, or even if they maybe would have brought it out right before summer so that it could kind of head off all these big action movies. But I think the timing at the end here was just not choice.
Yeah, I think also the comic book crowd that, you know, they've gone to that well quite a few times this summer.
Yeah.
Plus, I think the comic book crowd also knows if you're paying the money to see it in the theater, this isn't the kind of movie you need to pay the money to see in the theater.
No,
like, it's
it
not
wasn't.
spectacle, right? It's, you know what I mean? It's not a big budget, huge. And in fact, I think they actually spent less on this than the first one.
They did. Kick-Ass had a budget of, I believe, $30 million, and this had a budget of $28. So I was really surprised. And we'll obviously go into the movie more, but I think that's why it felt a little rushed or less polished than the first. I mean, it came out with it had less of a budget, and it's a sequel.
Well, and you figure the actors had, I mean, sure they signed them to multi-picture deals, but even on a second picture, you normally get a bump. So if the actors, and all the key actors that lived through the first one came back in the second one, so if those actors got a bump for movie 2 and they cut the budget,
that doesn't leave you with a lot
even
left
if you
over.
didn't live through the first one, you made an appearance in the second one. Both of them did. There was that picture of Nick Cage hanging up.
Yeah,
but
they don't pay him for that. They have the rights to do that.
Mark
image.
Strong getting blown up by a missile.
So, and we'll go quickly through some others here, but so Kick-Ass 2 was number 4. Number 5 was Planes, so that actually did hang on a bit. Like you were saying, it was really not great and didn't open that well, but the budget was small on it. It made another $13 million this week.
If you have kids and you want to go see a movie, judging by the box office returns for Despicable Me, there are no children left in America who haven't already seen it, so that leaves Planes.
Yep. Percy Jackson in second week had $8 million, so not crazy, but it actually made more than half of what it made its opening week. And Jobs opened at number 7 with $6.7 million. I'm really surprised at that one. I think I'm the only one here that saw Jobs.
Yes, I did not see it.
That doesn't necessarily mean a testament, you know, since we have to see a lot of movies, sometimes we can't see them all, but I figured with the Apple following, how, you know, there's a huge fan base of Apple people out there, you would think they would be interested in a big movie about that product. Ashton Kutcher fans, I mean, you know,
are there Ashton Kutcher fans?
I think young girls.
I think there are, but I don't think Ashton Kutcher fans want to see a biopic about a computer nerd.
And I don't think computer nerds want to see.
I still think he's one of those people. I mean, maybe not so much anymore, but I think for a while Ashton Kutcher movies drew Ashton just because it's him, you know.
Yeah, but this was so out of his wheelhouse, and I haven't seen it, so I'm not saying he was good or bad. I've heard that he was probably the bright spot of the film, but I just think that the people that liked Punk'd aren't really looking to see
but all in all, I mean, it's a movie that got a lot of buzz. It's about a big company, you know, Apple, and it opened 6.7 million in 7th place. I am surprised, but I think a lot of the negative criticism had something to do with that too.
Well, also you got to keep in mind too that the people that want to see Jobs probably they had to choose, right? They had to choose between this and The Butler, because there were two after a summer of no movies for grown-ups. They finally put out 2 on the same day, and something had to give.
Sure. Yeah, that could be it. Maybe it will live on next week and make the same amount or more. But yeah, and some of the other movies still holding on. Two Guns in 8th place, going down the list. The Smurfs 2, The Wolverine, The Conjuring.
Yes.
Despicable Me 2, still hanging in there. That thing's made $345 million domestic.
That's amazing.
That's it?
Absolutely amazing.
And Paranoia, I think, is the last movie that opened this week.
It will destroy you.
Oh, there you go. It opened in 13th place with $3.5 million.
Is that the one with Thor's brother, not Loki?
Yeah,
Thor's
and Harrison Ford.
Thor's real life brother.
Oh, Liam Hemsworth.
Is that his name?
Yeah. So, yeah. That's the box office this week. Pretty pitiful for new movies.
Yeah, well, it's August. We're hitting the doldrums, and then it starts to slow back down, and then it'll pick back up around Halloween and ramp back up to the end of the year. So you saw Jobs. So let's do a quick take and get your opinion of Jobs with a lowercase j.
So I thought Ashton Kutcher did a good Jobs.
Oh,
he's been waiting.
You're off.
He's
Get
been
out.
waiting to
off
do
the
that.
mic.
I really went into this movie with low expectations, and I don't want to say that that's the only reason why I liked it, but I wasn't all ramped up for it. I was neutral, you know. I own a couple Apple computers. I mainly use PCs, but I'm not a fanboy on either side. Not a fan of Ashton Kutcher by any means. I mean, the highest movie on Rotten Tomatoes he has is 49%. I'm just saying.
What was it?
I can't even remember, honestly.
The Butterfly Effect?
No, that was like 30. But
That's a good movie.
But I mean, I'm just saying that he's not a critically acclaimed actor, right? I've never really been a big fan of his. I think he's been in some fun stuff, but anyway, Ashton Kutcher doesn't sell a movie for me. What did sell the movie was how closely they got him to look like Steve Jobs. I mean, in some of the pictures that they released up, before the release of the film, they came out, and that's where I got intrigued, because there's a shot of him that he tweeted out, and I actually used it on my review. If you go to reviewstl.com and read the review, you can see that picture. He tweeted out a picture where half of his face is Steve Jobs in his late 40s, half is him looking like Steve Jobs at that time, and Ashton Kutcher's in his mid-30s. Yeah. But they do the hair and makeup and age him, and that's actually the first scene in the film. It opens with that, and you're just like, wow. I mean, that's Steve Jobs. Ashton Kutcher carries himself. He's got the hunched over posture of Steve Jobs. The way he carries his hands, the way he talks is pretty close. It wasn't exact, but I mean, it was pretty good. Throughout the movie, I really think that he did a phenomenal job. This is by far Ashton Kutcher's best performance to date, and I just want to give him props for that. But there were some times throughout the film where when he was younger and in college, it looked like Ashton Kutcher. I mean, they didn't really...
That was going to be my question.
They didn't really get the Steve Jobs when he was young look. The hair was right and everything, but really it looked like that's Ashton Kutcher in college. As he gets older, every, 5-10 years, as he gets older, they really get the look down. And
so this follows his entire life. It's not... Like a lot of times the take lately on biopics is, instead of trying to encompass an entire life, they focus more on like one small, like here are the, like Lincoln, like sure. It wasn't his whole life. It was here's him.
So they
slaves.
They kind of do that, but so let me step back and I'll just give you a brief overview of what it's talking about here. It starts with Steve Jobs dropping out of college. So the early years of him right before he kind of comes up with the idea for Apple computers with Steve Wozniak. And it goes up until 2001, which was the announcement of the iPod.
Right.
So it captures that time period. But what this movie's about more than his personal life is about the business going-ons of Apple.
Right.
So I have to give huge props and just tons of credit to Josh Gad, who plays Steve Wozniak. Okay. He really gives...
I like that guy a lot.
Josh Gad's a guy who is really talented. He's mainly been in comedies. He was in 21. He was on Broadway in Book of Mormon.
Yeah, he originated that role.
Yeah, talented guy, no doubt. But he doesn't give a lot of dramatic performances.
They normally have him play the kind of the weird, nerdy,
the friend,
like shy kid who's always saying something inappropriate.
Yeah, so that was perfect for Steve Wozniak, and the stuff that he had to do. But he really got into some dramatic stuff. There's a scene later on in the film where after Wozniak and Jobs created Apple, they got investors, they built this big company up. But as people know, as we've heard about Steve Jobs, he was definitely controlling. He was focused. He wasn't exactly a people person. And so he just started to change from the guy that wanted to do something great, which he always wanted to do, but he just lost sight of why he was doing it. He just knew it has to be the best product. It has to be better than the competitors. And he got into that, state of mind. And Josh Gad just gives this really emotional performance towards the end when he walks in and tells Steve, he says, do you know why I founded this company? I wanted to be one of the guys, and you were the coolest, and you've changed. And it's really emotional for both of them. And I think that he's definitely going to get he stole some of the spotlight from Kutcher, who was very good as well.
Right.
But overall, I thought it was really interesting. Again, it's more the business going-ons. They don't really touch on his personal life. He has a daughter, and he gets married, and he has another kid, but they really don't even tell you hardly the names of those people, besides from just mentioning it briefly. What it shows you is how Steve Jobs founded Apple Computer, how Steve Jobs basically got fired from Apple Computer, the company he started, and why they brought him back to save the company. And for those of you that don't know the story, Apple became the highest valued publicly traded company.
At one point, they had more cash on hand than the federal government.
Wow, yeah. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Jeez.
It sounds like I'm being silly because that's what I do, but that's actually was true. At one point, they had more cash on hand than the government.
Yeah, highest valued company in all, you know, the companies publicly traded. So he was the iMac, the iPod, iTunes, all of that was under his helm. So anyway, really interesting story. If you're a fan of Apple, I think you've definitely got to see it. But whether you're PC, Mac, you know, it doesn't matter. I think it's just a really intriguing story. And give Ashton Kutcher a chance. I guess it kind of shows you that when he puts his mind to it and gets a role where he has to act, he can actually do it.
So
Awesome.
that was my question. Is so did you feel like it wasn't when you looked at him on screen, you were like, that's Ashton Kutcher playing Steve Jobs?
In the younger years, I think I wish they could have captured. They do look similar, so I get it with the hair being the same and everything. Right. They do look similar, but Steve Jobs has a different jaw structure, and I think it was so in his younger years, they didn't emphasize his features, which when you're doing makeup for a character, you know, based on a real person, just like being a cartoonist, a caricature, you have to emphasize those features. And in his younger years, I didn't see a lot of the Steve Jobs features. As he got older, it's almost like they did the features differently, and then you're like, wow, that's Steve Jobs. Okay, so I would say from the middle years to the older years was spot on, and I'm like, that looks like Steve Jobs.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Gavin. That's your take on Jobs. And so we will go just real quick, because I saw a movie I don't think anybody else saw, The Butler, so we will segue from Mac to PC and talk about The Butler. It stars Forrest Whitaker.
Talk about PC.
Yes, exactly. It stars Forrest Whitaker, and it's inspired by a true story, not based on a true story, and that's a subtle but important distinction. Inspired by means that, based on means that they took the person that this happened to, and they try to somewhat tell. There might be some dramatizations, but for the most part, it's fairly accurate. Inspired by means a guy over there did that, and we're going to steal it and change everything and make it all Hollywood. That's what this is, and it's getting a lot of good reviews. I'll get to that in a second. It's getting some odd reviews, and it's a very interesting story. Forrest Whitaker plays Butler, who works in the White House, and he ends up working in the White House for 7 or 8 presidential administrations. I know the person in real life started under Truman, but in the film he starts under Eisenhower and goes all the way through Reagan. And it's set against the backdrop, of course, of the civil rights movement, and it's a very important film, as it likes to tell you.
Why do you think they would change such a historic fact? Why would you change the presidents and not just leave it? Do you have any idea why they did that?
I'm not sure. I honestly don't know. It just, I think because they wanted to hit the ground running from a civil rights standpoint, because Eisenhower has to deal with the desegregation of schools and Brown versus the Alabama State Board of Education and all that. But Truman has his own thing. If they're going to fictionalize it, Truman desegregated the military, so you could have, because they wanted, he ends up having these moments with each president where he, what do you think? And Cecil.
Who did they get some pretty big actors to play these presidents?
Yes, they did, and it's awful. They are just
wow, really?
awful. John Cusack is Richard Nixon. Yeah, like let that sink in. And
was Brolin Reagan?
No, Reagan was Alan Rickman.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then who did Robin Williams play?
He played Eisenhower.
And?
He was probably the best. He had the least to do, but I thought he was the one who acquitted himself the best.
Robin Williams, I think, is a great actor.
I don't
can be.
at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm not saying every role is
right,
best, but as an actor, he's very diverse in what he can do.
Right.
And I think he really has had some good performances.
Yeah, and I thought he was. He kicks it off and I was like, oh, okay, they're casting big names, but this works. Like, he worked for me as Eisenhower, and then the deeper it got, the weirder it got.
Who was Kennedy?
Was James Marsden.
That's what I thought.
And he was fine, but it was a very deifying portrayal of Kennedy. And so my big problem with the movie, and it's not that there aren't things to like. Forrest Whitaker is really good in the film, but is that it really focuses on the relationship between Forrest Whitaker and his son. And his son goes off and gets involved in the civil rights movement. And I get why they do that from a storytelling standpoint, but it just gets to be too on the nose for me. So he goes off to college and he becomes a freedom rider, one of the guys that goes on the buses down in the South to try and register black voters, and he becomes a freedom rider. And then the next scene, he's He's protesting at the famous Woolworth lunch counter demonstrations, and he gets arrested. And then in the next scene, he's in a hotel room with Martin Luther King moments before he is shot.
So
and then in the next scene, he is a Black Panther. It's just like
they're putting him in all of these.
Oh my
massive.
God! Yeah, he's every major civil rights historical signpost. It's just like bling, bing, bing,
Right.
flashing lights. Look, this is significant. And he turns into sort of a Black Forrest Gump, only that's not tongue in cheek. And it just was like too on the nose for me. And then the makeup on the presidents was really weird. And Alan Rickman did not sound. He looked like Reagan more than I would have thought, but he didn't sound like Reagan at all. Like he basically sounded like Alan Rickman with an American accent. And it was everything. The movie just. 42, remember the 42 movie, and I just picked that because it's a similar set in the same time period in the civil rights movement. And I felt like 42 was like I didn't think it necessarily needed to be a theatrical release. I felt like it was a really good HBO movie. Okay, this I felt like was a moderately well done Hallmark film, and it tried to encompass too much time, and so it felt like they tried to capture. It was a 4-hour miniseries edited down to 2 hours. Like there was just lots of skipping along. But what I have some quotes here, and this is what I find interesting. I went through some other people's reviews. These are top critics. These are all reviews that are positive. And it makes me think that this is delicate, but I think white people are scared to say that this isn't a very good movie or isn't as good as they hoped it would be. Because listen to some of these quotes, and again, these are all positive reviews.
Right.
Okay, this is positive. This is from Dana Stevens at Slate. Daniel's blunt go-for-broke approach provides many clunky moments and some unintended chuckles. It's a whistle-stop tour of pivotal moments in presidential history. It's preachy and mawkish.
That's a positive review.
That's a positive review. This is Peter Travers from Rolling Stone. There's no denying the stumbles that mar this alternately riveting and risible historical epic. Big stars and bad makeup doing cameos as American presidents. Yikes. That's his yikes, by the way.
That wasn't that you did put that.
I did not add a yikes.
and do you know, what are these people giving it? Like, that's a positive review in what extent?
Most people were coming in around 2.5 to 3 stars.
Okay.
And so, like, they're not, but I mean.
But it's still on the positive
you
side.
You describe the movie as risible, but still want people to go see it. That makes no sense. Michael Phillips, who is honestly probably my favorite working film critic, says he's from the Chicago Tribune. The excellent actors playing the power figures up to and including Alan Rickman's Ronald Reagan come off like a Rich Little convention. Scott Foundas at Variety. Gratuitous sentimentality cut with moments of real emotional power and tone that seesaws between serious social melodrama and outsized Chitlin circuit theatrical. Crudely obvious is how he describes
and that's
them.
Positive review?
These are positive reviews.
I mean, just say it. I mean, I don't understand the idea that I can't say it's a bad movie because
the subject matter.
The subject matter.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a bad movie, it's a bad movie.
Right.
Like, it's very simple. It has nothing to do with.
I've got 2 more here that amaze me. Lou Lumenick from the New York Post describes Oprah Winfrey's performance as serious chewing that borders on cringe-inducing. And finally, Andrew O'Hare, I don't know if I'm saying that right, from Salon. Again, positive review. These are verbatim quotes, everything I've read to you. This is from Salon. I'd be hard-pressed to describe Lee Daniels' The Butler as a good movie.
It's a positive review.
It's programmatic, didactic, and shamelessly melodramatic. Crude, contradictory, very bad in places, and very good in others. Every American should see it.
What?
What? I think what it comes down to is they're not reviewing the movie they saw. They're reviewing the movie they wish they saw.
Yeah.
They want this movie to be good.
This is a major problem among critics, and this isn't anything new. But it's the same mentality where Quentin Tarantino comes out with a movie, it has to be good. It's Quentin Tarantino. Most of his movies are. I'm just saying that as an example. I didn't like Death Proof. I'll tell you I didn't like Death Proof. I just didn't like it.
But that's your taste, and you're being honest about your taste.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that where most critics will I'm just not saying that one is the one, but it. Most people will say, oh yeah, Quentin Tarantino, it's great, before they even see it. They can write the review before the movie comes out. And this movie, I could tell before it even hit theaters, and I haven't seen it, this is an important movie. This is what they are telling you. This is what they want you to believe. This is an important movie. It's a big movie. It's an Oscar movie before anyone's seen it. And people get that built up in their heads, and they are afraid to be the ones to say that excellent movie is bad when really everyone's thinking the same thing.
And here's what I really bothers me about this is that it's not I mean, personally, it's not an important movie. It's an important topic, but it's not an important movie. And the fact that we have a less than good movie or to portray that topic, that should make you mad at the movie, not want to defend it. Like a topic this important deserves a better movie. And,
I agree.
And
I
so,
agree completely.
so why can't people say that? And this isn't just critics disagreeing with each other. We've all seen movies. I mean, we did it with, I mean, it's not an important film, quote unquote, but Man of Steel. We disagreed with each other about Man of Steel, but we didn't disagree with ourselves about Man of Steel. Like when you read these reviews, it's like you're reading people trying to talk themselves into liking this film.
Right.
It's really odd.
That guy wrote the review, got to the bottom, and before he gave it the letter grade or the stars, he said, oh, what was this supposed to be? Oh, it's a 3 out of 4 star movie. Like, he disregarded every thought that he put into the review and gave it the rating that he thinks it should have, and that doesn't make sense.
I can't imagine another situation where a film would be called preachy and mawkish or crudely obvious or not a good movie, very bad in places, shamelessly melodramatic, and still
a movie you should
still
see.
tell you to go see it.
And still, like, I honestly I want to like take the trailer and like change the voiceover and like read these quotes and then go into the next quote where they say, "But see it anyway." Like, I think that would be funny, but And so, yeah, it was just very mystifying for me. And it's not, and again, it's not a horrible movie. It's just, like I said, it's more like it should be on the Hallmark Channel.
Right.
It's an important topic, but it's not a well-made film. Those are two entirely different things that I think a lot of critics are scared to say because of the potential backlash.
Oh my God, that drives me insane. If you make a shit movie, you should be accountable for that, no matter what the subject material is. And I think as critics, we have an obligation to people who read our stuff and who, you know, if they're reading our stuff, to tell them the truth.
Well, that's the idea.
You know, like, I'm sorry that yes, you're right. The subject matter should have been taken seriously.
Right.
And you should be able to make a good movie around that.
And they took it seriously. They just didn't I just didn't think they did it all that well. It wasn't, again, not awful, but, and what's really frustrating is there are great movies about the civil rights movement. Mississippi Burning comes to mind. Great movie. But then the problem that you have with not with Mississippi Burning, but with when you start to stand back and look at the movies that have been made about the civil rights movement, they normally come back to they're movies about white people coming to terms with civil rights. Right. Not and the scenes you do see about the effect of it on black people, that's in the periphery. Or it's this horrible this horrible thing happens to a black person, and that's the catalyst for the film in which the white person has an epiphany and then changes and saves the day.
Sure.
And so that's kind of that's kind of the model a lot for these movies. Mississippi Burning does it, but Mississippi Burning is a great movie, and so you kind of give it a pass because it's so good. But if you watch enough of them, they all tend to follow that template. So I give this movie credit for not following that template. Like, you don't get a lot of movies about the civil rights movement that are truly from a black person's perspective. And so in that regard, it's an interesting story. And it is an interesting story, but it's just, like I said, a lot of it's just too on the nose. So and it just was like really, like, was there any one person that did all those things that just happened to be at all those key moments? Like, it was, it was very odd. So, but before we wrap up the Butler, did you get a chance to pull up the thing I sent you, the film review? I sent you a link. This is the Onion's review of the film, and it tells you everything you need to know about the
Are you political, Mr. Gaines?
No, sir.
Good. We have no tolerance for politics at the White House.
I'm Cecil Gaines. I'm the new Butler.
This is Peter Rosenthal, head film critic for The Onion. Today I'm going to be looking at Lee Daniels' The Butler, a historical drama inspired by the true story of an African-American White House butler, and a very important film that features very important people and covers very important themes. Overall, this is a big, important movie that you will watch and think, oh my God, this is all very important. Race, family, Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy, government, love, Richard Nixon, hopes, dreams, fathers and sons, the White House, and Dwight D. Eisenhower are all extremely important, and because this is an important movie, they are represented here. Forrest Whitaker is Cecil Gaines, the titular butler himself. Though Whitaker never explicitly says it, his performance seems to suggest what I am doing is important. What I am saying is important. The way this scene is lit with its rich golden hues means that what is happening is important. Hello, moviegoer. I'm Forrest Whitaker playing the part of Cecil. Do you understand how important this film is? One would also be remiss not to mention Oprah Winfrey, who produced this movie because of its importance and acts in it because that is equally important. Throughout the film, she screams, yells, and cries because everything happening around her is very significant and historic. The more significant and historic, the louder the screaming and more tearful the crying.
And everything you have is because of that butler.
The orchestral score by Portuguese composer Rodrigo Leal only further underscores the sheer significance of everything you're watching and lets you know that you are seeing a movie that is, by all accounts, truly meaningful. This scene is important. This scene is also important. What you're seeing here, all of this is very, very historic and very important. Indeed, when I left my screening of The Butler, I couldn't help but shake my head and remark how significant what I just watched was. Significant, historic, and important. I almost couldn't breathe because the importance of this movie was practically crushing my chest. Simply put, it is unfathomable to express in words how important a role the butler will play, not just in our lives, but in the lives of every single American until the end of time. For the Onion's Film Standard, I'm Peter Rosenthal.
Think that about sums it up.
That sounds like it's spot on.
Yeah, I guess I hit the nail on the head when I said that. I mean, I'm not alone in thinking that they think this movie's very important. That's the vibe I got when
And the vibe I got from the fact that the studio released it in August is that it's not really an Oscar contender.
No. That comes like, is that usually like October?
You start to see those trickle out in October. I'm not saying you never see an Oscar winner release, and like Saving Private Ryan came out in the summer, but that was also a Spielberg movie.
Right.
But most of the smaller, more boutique films that are, period pieces and whatnot, they tend to come out October, November, and ramp up through the end of the year. So the fact that they released it in August tells me that they got stuff that, I mean, it'll probably get a couple Oscar nominations because people love, the Oscars want Oprah at the ceremony.
Of course.
So that'll probably happen. But,
So that what it really boils down to is it's an Oprah movie that everyone thinks is important, and they're afraid to say otherwise.
I can't help but feel that way.
Are we saying that it should have been on the O network rather than in the big screens?
Yeah. Like, I mean, if it was just people raving about the film and I disagreed, that would be one thing. But like I said, they're in their own reviews, they're disagreeing with themselves.
Right.
So anyway, that was The Butler. And you can send your hate mail to at Roger Kubert.
I'll say at Kevin Brackett.
No.
So now let's get to Kick-Ass 2. We'll get to spoiling on the Kick-Ass 2.
And I think we're going to call it Kick Butt 2 for the edited version.
Yeah, this is for the kids.
If you can just do both versions each time.
Yeah,
okay.
Kick-Ass butt, and you can just edit them. So this is a sequel to the much-loved cult film Kick-Ass, which came out in 2010.
10.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was a delightful little film, fun for the whole family. No, not at all.
Not really.
It was dark and sadistic, but really funny, and you found yourself laughing in spite of yourself. And so I guess let's just jump right in and see what people thought about Kick-Ass 2. We will start with Kevin.
Sure. So I was a huge fan of Kick-Ass. I saw it in the theater and loved it. I was not familiar with the comic book, so I was definitely going in just as a film goer and still never read the source material. So I knew going into Kick-Ass 2 that it couldn't be as good as the first one. Lightning doesn't strike twice in that way, where it's so original, so clever, and you're so surprised by it all that it would just be really hard to outdo itself. So I wasn't expecting it to be better, but I still had pretty high hopes for it. I mean, based on the first one, the fact that, almost all the characters are back, and the trailers look like it's going to be, everything and more. And when I got out of it, I just couldn't help but to be left with this empty feeling. Now, it's not that I wasn't entertained. I was never bored by the movie. I thought that it was entertaining. I thought there were parts of it that were really funny. There were definitely laugh out loud moments, and there was some really cool stuff in it. But what I also felt was it just wasn't as polished as the first one. So again, not that it has to be better, but usually on a sequel, you're looking for a movie to improve, whether it be visual effects, whether it be acting, or whatever the case is, you're looking for a better movie than the original. You should have more funds, which we talked about earlier. This one obviously didn't, which is odd, but you should have more support for it and, you know, improve on it. And I think what we got was a lot of the visual effects looked really cheesy, for lack of a better term.
That fight on the van.
Oh, it's terrible.
What was that? That looked like it was.
Terrible.
That looked like it was straight out of T.J. Hooker.
I think it was, and they just edited them on top of it.
And what was a shame is the fight itself, the choreography of the fight was great.
It could have been really cool.
I loved what they were doing, but
yeah.
that green screen was just
it looked like that Wolverine cut from like X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh,
Like it looked like
those
that.
special effects were terrible.
That was horrible.
And so that was the problem I had with it. So I'm not saying, I mean, I didn't love every single beat and every bit of the writing, but that stuff can be excused when you have a fun comic book type movie like this. We've talked about it before. Movies that we've all really enjoyed or pretty much enjoyed, there's been some bad writing, but you know, it's excusable in these type of movies. Not to say that they shouldn't strive for better, but you can give it a pass. In this movie, it just didn't feel like it was that. It didn't have the same fun that the first one did. So besides from being unpolished, I felt like they were trying to go really dark, like a lot of the superhero movies have gone lately. And I'm not saying that it wasn't written more like that in the comic books, but still, it just felt like you were going for this dark, depressing tone, and you lost a lot of the magic of the first one, because no matter how outrageous things were, no matter how crude or violent things got, it was done in a way that was fun and didn't ever say sorry for what it was doing. And this one just felt too dark and depressing that it didn't really go with the whole kick-ass tone to me. So I thought it was okay. I would say somewhere in the like C to C- range.
Okay, Steve.
Wow, you really pretty much just took everything I was going to say.
Okay, Joe.
I was I was pretty much in the same boat as Kevin when I saw the first one, and I had no idea what to expect. I didn't read the comic books, but I was pleasantly surprised. You know, it was a dark take, but it was also there were enough lighthearted moments that it was really enjoyable. There were a lot of laugh out loud moments, and seeing the second one, I thought there were some good moments. There were some really funny moments, like when Colonel Stars and Stripes is introducing a team. You know, his introduction of what's the gay member, I thought was hilarious.
The insect, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, but as a whole, it wasn't fun. You know, it was entertaining at times, but it just kind of felt like, oh, let's make another movie because this first one made money. It was derivative. It wasn't nearly as entertaining. I likened it to drinking an O'Doul's beer. You know, it may look like a beer, it may taste like a beer, but the effect just isn't the same.
They kind of sucked the fun out of it. They took away, they were trying to get serious, but you can get dark and serious and still be fun. Just like the first one had some really dark moments.
Her dad dies
in front of her.
Horrible. Like, not even like, hey, I just got shot. Like, they set him on fire in front of her.
Yeah. And so I agree, Steve. That's kind of the same way I felt. They took the fun that the first one had out of it.
And not only that, I mean, the whole, in the very beginning, he starts training with Hit Girl, Kick-Ass does, and he's like getting in shape. He's like really ripped, it's showing that he's taking it seriously. He still gets his ass kicked in like every single scene pretty much.
It's like, how long does this guy need to train to be a superhero? Like, we spent the whole last movie him training to be a superhero.
My point exactly. Yeah. You figure they wrap up the first one. That was what the first movie was for.
Right.
It was him being out of his element, not being a guy that can kick ass, quote unquote. That was kick ass. This is kick ass 2. That means you can kick ass. Let's go.
Right.
That's not what happened.
Yeah.
At all. I was really underwhelmed. I have read all of the comic stuff. The first movie is pretty close. Like they capture almost all of the beats, all of the moments, all of the comedy and things. And this one, so there are 4 miniseries total. There's Kick-Ass, Kick-Ass 2, Kick-Ass 3 is out right now, and there was also like an interlude called Hit Girl. They've taken pieces from Kick-Ass 2 and Hit Girl and kind of put them into Kick-Ass 2 the movie.
Okay. Was Hit Girl more the high school stuff?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And Kick-Ass kind of plays a background role the entire time. So in the Hit Girl comic, we see her with Marcus, and Marcus ends up marrying her biological mother. And she, like, throughout the entire miniseries, she is drugging her parents at dinner time so she can go out and do the hit girl thing.
Right.
Which I wanted to see because I think that's funny. Like, I find that part funny.
And that's the kind of stuff from the first one that's like goes right up to that line, but within that world,
serious, but funny, you know, in context. Yeah.
And then they I guess we're just gonna spoil the shit out of it.
That's what we do.
They kill his dad in the same way in the comics. They set him up in the jail cell. He takes the fall for his son, kill him in the jail cell. Then of course he comes back to get his revenge. But it felt lifeless to me, like the entire movie itself. I think there, like you said, there were some funny parts. They do some really weird things with the relationships in these movies. They make it look like Hit Girl and Kick-Ass are gonna get together.
I think that's just because that's what Hollywood does. They don't know what to do without a romantic subplot.
I like the idea of them being friends and partners, like Batman and Robin. Like, they make that joke, and I think I like that idea of that relationship.
And how old is Hit Girl supposed to be?
She's supposed to be, I mean, she's a freshman in high school, so 14, 15.
Yeah.
And he's a senior in high school.
Which is a little...
You get locked up for that kind of shit.
It's a little on the edge, but it's not... I mean, he's not like he's 35.
No, I agree.
It's not something I want to see.
Wasn't he a senior in high school in the last movie?
No.
It's just like Friday Night Lights where there's always seniors.
We're always seniors.
Yeah, it's like Welcome Back, Kotter.
John Travolta's still in high school. I thought, Jim Carrey, as much shit as he gave this movie, I thought he was actually... he captured that character. Like, that's the way that character is.
He was good in the movie. And I'm not a Jim Carrey fan.
I love Jim Carrey in this movie. Really good. If I could pick one best part out of the movie, I think it would be General Stars and Stripes. Yeah. I actually am a Jim Carrey fan. I know he's done some bad stuff, but I think he's a pretty versatile actor, and I think that he really can get into these different characters and not be Jim Carrey.
Right.
And some of them, some he is, but I think and in this, he did that. He didn't even hardly resemble Jim Carrey.
He didn't do any silly voices or anything like that.
But yeah, the performance he put on as General Stars and Stripes, I think was one of the funniest and best parts. I loved it. I wanted more General Stars and Stripes. And, spoiler, he dies. Yeah. Which sucks.
So they kill him horribly in the comics. Like, they decapitate his dog, and then like when everybody comes into the Hall of Justice or whatever you want to call it, he's sitting there like beating his shit with the dog's head in his crotch. And so that's kind of like, I guess that's when Chris D'Amico, aka the motherfucker, or Red Mist from the first movie, that's when Kick-Ass starts realizing that things are going to get worse before they get better. They capture, like, the ending scene in Kick-Ass 2, this comic series, is a giant all-out gang war in the streets of New York. So they kind of do that in this movie, where they have I'm just going to keep saying it, I guess it's his character's name, in the motherfucker's hideout. They kind of capture that. I thought the foreshadowing with the shark was stupid. I saw that coming from a mile away.
I think everyone did.
Oh, he's sleeping in the tank, and then he falls in the tank. I'm safe. I mean, that was...
Well, no, like, even Mother Russia's like, you just have to feed him. He's just hungry. And I was like, well, obviously somebody's going to fall in that tank, and they're going to die.
Well, right. All of it. Yeah, it just was, like, in your face.
Yeah, so I just thought it did not have the same life that the first movie had, and maybe that does have to do with Matthew Vaughn. Maybe Matthew Vaughn brought something to that first movie.
I think that's totally what
that I don't know who the director of this was. Did not have.
He still produced it, and it was his company, Marv Films, that produced it. You would think that you would have a little more control over it, though, a little more quality control.
A lot of times, though, it's like that producer credit is just like, it's just a gift. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's his company. I mean, wouldn't you, if your company, Marv Films, wants to make another movie, you better do some quality control. I'm just saying, it kind of ruins their credibility as a production company. That's all.
No, I mean, sometimes it seems like those directors, they move on to the next project, and then they're just like, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just a job for hire, and there's, and so he doesn't necessarily have the same. And I'm not saying that that's the case, but I'm just saying that a producer credit doesn't always mean that guy's showing up for work every day.
No, and I bet he didn't. I know, I totally agree with you, because he's producing X-Men First Class.
He's too busy doing
Days of Future Past, and
also compare the paycheck on that film to the paycheck on this film, and he's going to be like, yeah, I'm going to really care about the movie. Like, if this movie comes and goes, nobody's going to say a word. But if I work on an X-Men movie and it's a big turd,
right? And that was the other thing. Like, so there's the scene in the high school where Mindy, or Hit Girl, is kind of breaking, I just air quotes, breaking up with Kick-Ass. And so his current girlfriend from the first movie, like, smacks him in the face, and she says whatever. She drops a line about Marcus's pole, I guess, which is so, like, that is from the books.
Right.
So in the first issue, in the first comic series, he pretends that he's gay so he can get close to this girl that he thinks is hot. He finds out that he's not gay. She feels betrayed, and she sends him a video of her blowing another guy. So of course he's crushed the entire time. And I find that like, and so in the first movie, of course, he gets together with the girl. They become an item. In this movie, they go back to that same thing from the first comic series just to get her out of the movie, which I was like, all right, whatever. Like, why did you even put that in there? That was so stupid. It was such a waste of time.
So you're saying it references something that happens in the comic that doesn't happen in the film?
No.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the almost rape scene and the when the motherfucker, or we'll probably bleep these out. That's fine.
The MFer, Tom.
The MFer.
The MFer.
Yeah. We'll say kick butt, but motherfucker.
So that is out of Kick-Ass 2, the comic series.
Right. Does he actually commit the act in the comic, or does he have the same ending of performance anxiety?
No, he rapes the girlfriend from the first movie.
Okay.
So whatever her name is,
Psycho bitch
or something,
See,
or
like,
dark bitch,
night bitch. So right now, I just interject here a second. See, that kind of stuff. These are these superheroes, and one is called Night Bitch. I mean, what kind of name? So that stuff is the stuff that's fun that's in there,
right?
But anyway,
so obviously in the comic series, Chris D'Amico knows who Dave Lazinski is, so he goes after the girl that he liked. So Night Bitch doesn't even play her, like, she's in the comics, but she doesn't even play, like, this whole hooking up randomly, I don't believe happens. So he beats up and he rapes the girlfriend from the first movie, and I guess in this one they just substituted that girl for Night Bitch.
Okay. So, but the act does occur in the comics. Okay,
yeah, that series is rough. And there is some dark stuff that happens in that series.
And I read that Christopher Mintz-Plasse said that he was relieved to find out, after reading the source material, that in the movie they wrote it a different way, where he didn't have to have his character do that.
Yeah, right. I think that would be a bridge too far for the movie.
Well, I also think that makes that character, like, you kind of like the motherfucker a little bit.
You don't like him, but you enjoy not liking him.
Right.
Where if he does that, you can no longer enjoy not liking him.
Right. You won't love to hate him. You just hate
don't.
Him.
You just hate him. Yeah. There's a difference, and so that, like I said, I think that would be a bridge too far.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think I liked the movie better than anybody in the room. I still didn't love it. But I guess I went in with just really drastically low expectations because I just didn't think that they were going to be able to recapture the magic of the first one, and there's also just that element of there's this giddy joy of discovery when you come across a movie like Kick-Ass, where you were just like, wow, I can't believe that they did that, and that they did it well, and that and so you just kind of walk out with a little bit of an adrenaline rush because it was just such a fun movie and so well done and so different, and so I knew even if they did it as good as the first one, which I didn't think that they would, but even if they did, it would still feel let down just because you can't top yourself, and I think that's probably the mistake that Mark Miller made in the second comic is that the rape was an attempt to top the outrageousness of the first one.
Well, not even the rape, but I mean the way they kill his old man.
Yeah, And so I just think that he felt like that he had to top it with crazy stuff,
right?
And that he just couldn't, and so it just gets weird and kind of like
you're doing it just to do it,
right? Yeah. And so I think that was the problem, and so overall, like, I liked it okay. I wasn't. I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be. It kind of reminds me of. I'm old enough to have seen this in the theater. It reminds me of Eddie and the Cruisers too, in that I didn't expect it to be very good, and it wasn't great, but it was better than I thought. And it's also Eddie and the Cruisers is one of those movies that came and went in theaters and really got a second life. It was cable that saved that movie. Yeah. When it hit cable, people were like, Eddie and Cruisers, that was a really fun movie.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah, and Showtime, I think it was, showed that movie like every other day at 10 o'clock. So if you were a kid in the summer, you saw Eddie and the Cruisers. You probably saw it 5 or 6 times. And so, in an odd way, it reminded me of Eddie and the Cruisers too.
Interesting.
I get what you're saying. I mean, definitely low expectations always help going into any movie. I mean, if you have low expectations, but I just don't think it should have been worse. Like, they should have, been striving to make it better. And so I just can't even try to excuse it for what it was because it's like they didn't even try.
I think the same problem came from the comics, honestly. He was able to capture lightning in a bottle with that first series because he was coming off the Ultimates. He was coming off of no, I guess he was just doing the Ultimates, and then you bring on John Romita Jr. to do the pencils. Who is it? I dare somebody to fight me and say that he's not one of the greatest pencilers in modern comics today. And he just had this tour de force of something that they brought it to the Marvel imprint of Icon. They were able to do whatever they wanted with the creator-owned stuff, and it was awesome. It was a great first series. And then, like Tom said, they just tried to one up themselves with the next story, and it like the Kick-Ass. I'm reading Kick-Ass 3 now just because I may as well finish the whole damn thing, and it's not like it's okay. Like it's nothing. Like when Kick-Ass came out, you were just kind of like, oh, God, I cannot wait for the next issue. I want to see what's going to happen. And these last 3 minis just don't have that, and I think the movie kind of fell in the same trope.
And I think the other big problem the movie that the movie had was that Chloe Grace Moritz, am I saying that right? Moritz?
Hit girl. We'll just say that.
Hit girl.
Yeah.
She's not 12.
No.
Let's face it, she's not 12. And part
As
of what
she grows up, it's less ironic.
Right. Part of what made that first one so funny was a 12-year-old doing these things. And they picked a great actress, and I do mean a great actress. I think that girl's going to go, I mean, she's done some really great work in other more serious films.
Let Me In, she was really good in.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that she's going to be I think she's probably going to be this generation's like Jodie Foster, and she's going to
make a really bad movie in Elysium.
Yeah, she's going to navigate the Hollywood system and not end up a forgotten child star that's a tragic tale. And she's going to make good movies, and she's going to probably win Oscars. And I mean, I think that she's that good.
I think we'll see her in what is it? She's in the remake of Carrie, right?
Yeah, I think that's her next movie. Yeah. And so I do think that that girl's the real deal. But part of what made the first one so good was just this 12-year-old girl dropping the C word and killing people and taking them out left and right. Like that was that hallway scene where she runs down the hallway killing all those guys.
That was great.
That's a great scene. And this movie never really had a scene like that. It was trying to do it with the van, and it came close, and I think it might have actually gotten there if it had been not so TJ Hooker-ish. But she's just too old. It feels weird to tell a 15-year-old girl that she's over the hill. But I think for a role like this, and they tried to incorporate that, but it just didn't have the same impact. And I think they were smart they toned her down a little bit, I think, which was smart because it would have really felt egregious.
I think they toned her down to a point like when you see her on that van,
yeah,
and she starts dropping some 4-letter words,
right,
and doing the hit girl thing. To me, that scene did make it a little bit better because I got to see the hit girl that I liked from the first movie.
Yeah.
So, but it looks so visually it was not good.
It's a shame because probably a lot of this too, I mean, when you talk about the budget and some of the, bad effects, I mean, this movie almost didn't get made. Lionsgate, even with the success of the first one and the Life on DVD, they didn't want to make it. So it seems like a really odd choice. So, Lions
switched studios, didn't it?
That's what I mean. Lionsgate dropped out, and it wasn't going to get made until Universal picked it up.
Right.
And I think they just weren't willing to take the risk, and probably was a rush production because it was already too late. And then they finally got someone to pick it up, and they did it.
The clock was probably ticking on some 2-picture deals too, is my guess.
Yep.
Exactly. So what's done is done. I can't forgive the movie for being what it is just because of those circumstances, but it's a shame because it really could have been better, I bet.
Maybe. I don't know. It would have been tough.
Better. I'm not saying it would have been a masterpiece, but had it remained with Lionsgate and they started it right away and they did it right, I think there was more potential there.
Yeah, I agree. So, well, that's Kick-Ass 2. Well, now, in my research for Kick-Ass 2, I came across a little interesting article. As you know, Kick-Ass is about people that want to be real-life superheroes, and there are people that actually attempt this.
Yes, there are.
Tom, is there something you want to tell us?
No, I am neither super or real life.
Hero, though. I am a hero.
I am a hero. Sandwich. But no, I have a list of some real-life costumed vigilantes. I thought you'd be interested in hearing about.
Do I need my abacus for this?
No, there's no math involved, so you'll be fine. Here's one, Mr. Extreme. He and his fellow superheroes are in the Extreme Justice League, a group founded by Mr. Extreme, as you could probably tell because it has his name in the title. It's like sitting around like it's the Dave Matthews Band. Oh, how'd you come up with that, Dave? Thanks. They fight crime in the San Diego area, and his costume includes body armor and pinhole goggles.
All right.
Okay.
So, all right on.
Here's the next one is Angle Grinder Man.
ANGLE?
Yeah.
And this is real.
Yeah, no, I read it right. Yeah, I did the same thing. I'm like, is it Angel? But I don't know that Angel Grinder would make any more sense. But
make more sense than
make more sense as a villain, really, if you're grinding angels.
Do they use an angle grinder as weapon?
I guess maybe it depends on how exactly are you grinding them or grinding on them.
Oh, hey, there it is.
Maybe you just really like
angels.
He
likes some angels. Yeah. Or girls named Angel.
I think he was on angel dust when he thought of this.
That's probably about right.
So here's the deal on him. Who wears a light blue leotard, a gold mask, and gold boots besides George Clinton, carries a very big saw and only comes out at night to help citizens of Great Britain. That's Angle Grinder Man, the superhero of Kent, and on weekends, London.
Oh, that's nice of him.
Do you think that means something in British slang?
Angle
grinder?
It might. Man, that makes more sense than anything over here in the Midwest. Are like, you're an idiot for that stupid ass name.
So get a load of this. He patrols the streets each night looking for motorists stranded by wheel clamps. Those, like, I think we call them boots, right? But they call trunks boots. So if they called those boots, they would be really confused.
I see. All right.
But the clamps put on cars after too many parking tickets. Motorists.
So his tool that he uses to get the boots off is an angle grinder.
Oh, is that?
That's what I'm saying. He uses an angle grinder as his weapon.
That's why I didn't know what it is. It's a power tool, and I don't own any. That would be the problem.
It's a grinder you can adjust at different angles.
And that's what it says. Motorists with cars that have been clamped can either pay the associated fees to have their car freed, or they can wait for this local superhero to liberate their vehicles with his gold-painted circular saw. So in other words, he's a douche.
Kevin has brought up a picture on the screen of Angle Grinder, and it is awesome. Holy
I'm surprised
cow.
he can even lift that thing up. Look at him.
So this, I mean, it's one thing if you're really not breaking the laws and you're trying to protect people, but the government are putting these things on there to get. So he's doing very illegal work.
Yeah.
He's messing with the government.
He's a criminal.
He's a legit vigilante.
Yeah. So, okay, up next is Super Barrio. It's
oh, come on.
This is a guy. Super Barrio is an advocate for tenant rights and for the rights of families in low-income neighborhoods, as well as labor rights for Mexican workers.
Yeah,
that's
that
a Mexican one.
Yeah, saw that one coming.
You can tell by the word super.
Yes, right.
So, up next is Captain Australia.
Where does he reside?
Oddly enough, Canada. Captain Australia is a 30-something father of two who is good with animals, has a green thumb, and has been on his mission since 2009 to prevent crime in his city of Brisbane, Australia. His costume is based on Kick-Ass.
Huh.
And only he added an @ logo on his chest. And he carries only a flashlight, a cell phone, and a video camera.
Well, that seems dumb. I feel like that's not a smart way to carry stuff.
Up next is the Crimson Fist. The Crimson Fist fights his nemesis on the streets of Atlanta, Georgia. That nemesis, homelessness.
Oh.
Yeah. He also has the occasional crime intervention, probably with homeless. But when he's not working as an IT programmer, the 5'6" superhero dons a white and red costume with a red mask to protect his identity. Because if there's anything people hate, it's somebody that helps the homeless.
Yeah, you asshole. How dare you?
Let's take that douche out.
Well, unless he's pulling a deal like Angle Grinder Man, where he's stealing money from the government to give to the homeless people.
Lionheart is a mask-wearing superhero in the West African country of Liberia. His job is to help people find toilets.
Oh,
what? Is there a lack of toilets?
There actually is. Lionheart is an advocate for clean drinking water in his nation because 6 out of 7 Liberians use the bush as their bathroom. Access to toilets and sanitation are major issues in Liberia. Lionheart also focuses on educating villagers about how to boil water to make it safe for drinking.
Well, there we go.
Petoskey Batman.
I can see the picture that Tom has, and I was like,
I think that's actually Adam West.
Is that Adam West?
I think that is an Adam West picture. Despite his best efforts to keep the streets safe, the Petoskey Batman may be better known for his run-ins with the law than those who are breaking it. This guy's actually officially a nut job. Williams has been arrested several times, including once after police were dispatched to rescue a man dressed as Batman dangling from the roof of a building.
Did you ever see the Kevin Smith thing where he talks about how he wrote a thing for Clerks where Randall would dress up like he put a note on a girl's car that he liked, and it was like he'd look up and he'd be standing there with Randall would be standing there with or Dante would be standing there with a Batman shirt, and Randall's like, yeah, but how do you get down? Like, what happens then? He's like, oh, I never thought about that. Damn it.
Master Legend helps keep the streets of Orlando safe and advocates for the city's homeless, elderly, and low-income families. In 2009, he founded Team Justice, the first nonprofit organization for real-life superheroes. And then my last one is Phoenix Jones.
Yeah, I think he's the most popular.
Yeah, Phoenix Jones, along with other superheroes in the Rain City superhero movement, fights crime and calls 9/11 a lot on the streets of Seattle. The Seattle Super Squad, a group of crime fighters whose members include characters such as Green Reaper, No Name, and Catastrophe, patrol every night, and among them carry batons, pepper spray, tasers, and of course cell phones.
I feel like, didn't Phoenix Jones catch some serious media? Like, didn't he try to break up a fight or something, and it got like some serious media
He did,
attention.
and they said they assaulted them.
Right,
Yeah, it says
right.
his true identity was revealed after the superhero was arrested in 2011, and he's a special education teacher and father of 2.
I think they fired him.
But it does not say what he was arrested for.
Very interesting.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
So, anyway, real life superheroes. How about that?
It can happen.
So are we ready for our video recovery?
Yeah, since Dan's not here, you're taking it on this week?
Yeah, I'm taking it on this week, and I thought in honor of Kick-Ass 2, I would talk about another movie about a real-life superhero, and this is from 1980. It stars John Ritter as Captain Avenger. He plays Steve Nichols, and he's a struggling actor in New York City who takes a job posing as a comic book hero, Captain Avenger, at comic stores and conventions, but when he unexpectedly thwarts a robbery at a local convenience store, the media he's in his costume, the media catches on, and he becomes Captain Avenger. And so he gets hired by the mayor's staff, who want to use Captain Avenger to tie in to help the mayor win his upcoming re-election, and then chaos ensues. So it's a cute little movie. It's fine for the kids. It's John Ritter. It's not like John Ritter does a whole lot of crazy stuff. And I actually found the trailer online. Would you like to listen to it with us?
Yeah, let's have a watch.
Here we go. Hero at Large from 1980, starring Ann Archer and John Ritter.
Somewhere in the heart of this city, in a small shop closing for the night, a robbery is in progress. But help is on the way.
Mind if I drop in?
Captain Avenger!
John Ritter is Steve Nichols,
How about that?
hero at large.
Who are you, J. Edgar Hoover?
I'm Captain Avenger.
Such a nice boy.
He can't fly.
Tomorrow I'm leaping over a tall building at a single bound.
Wrong guy.
I'm expanding.
He can't bend steel.
I'm in big trouble.
Fighting crime is a dirty business.
But when there's danger, he can't turn away.
You're a crazy man. He dresses up in a comic book suit and goes around doing good deeds.
Hold it right there! Don't make another move! If they're gonna use real bullets, I think I'll retire.
He's loved by women.
I'm not always this easy.
I bet you say that to all the girls.
Cheered by men.
They want their superhero and all he stands for to hold on to.
And worshipped by children.
Captain Avenger.
Yes, sir.
Let's see you fly.
A hero's work is never done.
He's nutty, but noble.
I'm counting to 3, Milo. Who the hell is that? This is Robert Redford.
He's dizzy, but dedicated.
People putting themselves on the line for other people. That's what being a hero is.
But he's really just an actor who got carried away with a role.
It's just like any other part. You gotta really get into it.
Captain Avenger.
Who sends you out on these missions anyway? Your agent?
I took a third-rate movie, made it the biggest hit of the year with a simple gimmick. Captain Avenger comes to your neighborhood.
Authorities are still wondering who the man in the red, blue, and yellow costume with a large A on his chest really is.
It's me, Steve Nichols.
All he knows about heroes is that people need one.
Yeah, I heard it a couple of times.
All he could do was make himself hero at large.
Well, I think it's really terrific.
John Ritter, Ann Archer, Bert Convy, and Kevin McCarthy. Hero at large. At last, help is on the way.
Nothing says quality entertainment like Bert Convy.
Wow, they really sold movies back then.
They did, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, they didn't mess around with what kind of movie this was. They really tried to sell that thing.
Yeah, and actually, for what it is at the time, I mean, I was 10 when this movie came out, and I remember it, and it was fun. It was a fun take on it, and it was, so especially if you're a little bit older and you remember this movie, you probably forgot that you remembered this movie. So hopefully we reminded you.
There it is.
So that's this week's video recovery.
Excellent.
Thank you. So I believe next week we will see the return of Dan. Will Blake be joining us again? Or do
Yes,
we know?
yes, both the regulars will be back.
The gang will be all here. How about that? And what will we be talking about next week? Is it Your Next? Is that what it is?
Or The World's End?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we should talk about The World's End.
Or we could just do them both, like we did today. We did 3 movies today.
That's true. It depends on the how much meat there is on that bone, as I like to say. Some movies have more meat than others. So that's this week's Real Spoilers. Before we go, let's let everybody say where they can find it. Kevin, where can they find you online?
Sure, at Kevin R. Brackett on Twitter, and of course, reviewstl.com.
Joe?
You can read all of my comic-related info or articles at reviewstl.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Joey Butts, Butts 21.
And I am Tom O'Keefe. You can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert, Facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. And don't forget the show is on Facebook as well, Facebook.com/Real Spoilers. If you like what you hear, share us or tell a friend. And if you don't, shut your pie hole.
And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, just go up to the little rating tab and give us a 5-star rating, maybe a little blurb. Let us know you like what we're doing.
That would be excellent. I forgot about the iTunes thing. So yes, we are now on iTunes. So thank you for reminding us of that. And until next week, Nash's friends were all in his head.